cold open, sound of a ticking clock, faint, then fades, in the quiet corners of our lives, where the deepest human longings reside. A predator often lies in wait. It doesn't stalk in the shadows, nor does it announce itself with menace. Instead, it approaches cloaked in the most alluring disguise imaginable: boundless affection, relentless attention, and a profound, almost cosmic understanding. It promises a love story unlike any other, a connection so immediate, so intense, it feels preordained. This is the seductive prelude to a psychological phenomenon known as love bombing. Consider the story of Sarah, a vibrant artist in her late 20s, who had always yearned for a partner who truly saw her. She met Mark at an exhibition. From their very first conversation, Mark seemed to possess an almost uncanny ability to articulate her deepest desires, her unspoken dreams. He complimented her art with a detail that suggested hours of study, not just a casual glance. Within days, he was sending her flowers daily, writing lengthy, poetic messages, showering her with gifts, and planning elaborate dates that catered to her every obscure interest. He spoke of their soulmate connection within a week, confessed his undying love within 2, and proposed they move in together before the month was out. Sarah, swept off her feet, felt a euphoria she'd never known. This wasn't just love, this felt like destiny, a divine intervention after years of feeling overlooked. She believed she had found her other half, the one who would finally complete her. But what Sarah didn't know, couldn't possibly comprehend in that dazzling initial onslaught, was that every grand gesture, every breathless compliment, every declaration of eternal devotion, was not an expression of genuine affection, but a carefully constructed trap. Each act was a precisely calculated maneuver, designed to dismantle her defenses, to override her intuition, and to bind her to a narrative that was, ultimately, not about love, but about control. This wasn't romance. This was a sophisticated psychological operation. And Sarah was its target. Sound of a deep, resonant hum. Introduction. We are inherently wired for connection, for belonging, for love. It's a fundamental human need, as vital as food or shelter. From the earliest days of our existence, our survival depended on the bonds we formed with caregivers. This deep-seated evolutionary imperative makes us susceptible to those who exploit this very need, turning our most profound desire into our greatest vulnerability. Love bombing is precisely this exploitation. It is an intensive, overwhelming display of affection and attention, often at the very beginning of a relationship, that creates an illusion of immediate, profound intimacy. It's an accelerated courtship designed to overwhelm and disarm, leaving the target feeling cherished, admired, and utterly indispensable. But beneath this glittering facade lies a darker truth. Love bombing is a potent form of psychological manipulation, a tactic often employed by individuals with narcissistic, psychopathic, or borderline personality traits. It is a strategic opening gambit in a longer game of control and emotional subjugation. This isn't merely excessive flattery or enthusiastic romance. True affection grows organically, built on shared experiences, mutual respect, and a gradual unfolding of trust. Love bombing, by contrast, is a manufactured whirlwind, an artificial acceleration of intimacy that bypasses the natural stages of relationship development. It creates an emotional debt, an obligation born of perceived adoration, making it incredibly difficult for the target to recognize the manipulation, let alone resist it, when the true nature of the relationship inevitably reveals itself. The stakes are far higher than a mere broken heart. Individuals subjected to love bombing often experience profound psychological distress, erosion of self-worth, isolation from support networks, and even long-term trauma. Understanding its mechanisms isn't just an academic exercise. It's a critical tool for self-preservation, a shield against those who would weaponize our deepest desires. We must delve into the intricate psychological underpinnings of this phenomenon, dissecting how seemingly benign acts of affection can become the insidious threads of a velvet cage. By understanding the science, the patterns, and the profound human cost, we can begin to recognize the wolf in sheep's clothing, even when it whispers promises of eternal devotion. Sound of a subtle, unsettling ambient drone. Main content. To truly grasp the insidious power of love bombing, we must first examine the psychological terrain it exploits. It's a sophisticated attack on our cognitive and emotional faculties, designed to create a dependency that is profoundly difficult to break. We will explore several key concepts that illuminate this dark dance between manipulator and target. Concept 1. Attachment theory and the exploitation of insecure attachment. At the core of our relational patterns lies attachment theory, a framework developed by John Bowlby in the 1960s and later expanded upon by Mary Ainsworth in the 1970s. This theory posits that our early experiences with primary caregivers shape our internal working models of relationships, influencing how we seek and maintain connections throughout our lives. While secure attachment fosters healthy independence and interdependence, insecure attachment styles, anxious preoccupied, dismissive avoidant, and fearful avoidant, leave individuals vulnerable to manipulative tactics like love bombing. Individuals with an anxious preoccupied attachment style, for instance, often experienced inconsistent caregiving in childhood. Their caregivers might have been attentive one moment and distant the next, leading them to develop a deep-seated fear of abandonment and a constant need for reassurance and validation. They tend to be hyper-vigilant to signs of rejection and may equate intense, immediate attention with genuine love. This makes them prime targets for love bombers. The love bomber mirrors their deepest unmet needs, creating an illusion of perfect understanding and unwavering devotion, which an anxious individual desperately craves. This initial deluge of attention feels like the antidote to their lifelong anxieties, a promise of permanent security. Example: consider Michael, a software engineer who, despite outward success, harbored a lifelong feeling of being not quite enough. His parents, though loving, were often preoccupied and emotionally inconsistent, leaving him with an anxious attachment. He met Lena, who immediately swept him off his feet. Lena declared him the most brilliant, sensitive man she had ever met, echoing his unspoken desire to be seen and valued. She would text him constantly, expressing how much she missed him even after a few hours, and planned surprise weekends away where she lavished him with praise and gifts. She spoke of their undeniable spiritual bond, and how she'd never felt this level of connection before. Michael, starved for consistent validation, felt an intoxicating rush. This wasn't just attention, it was the ultimate affirmation, proving he was finally worthy of unconditional love. Lena filled the void that had lingered since childhood, offering a sense of security and belonging he had always craved. His anxious attachment, rather than signaling caution, drew him deeper into her orbit, mistaking the intensity for genuine depth. Why it matters? This exploitation of insecure attachment is critical because it bypasses rational thought and taps directly into primal emotional needs. The love bomber isn't just offering compliments, they are offering a perceived solution to lifelong insecurities. By becoming the source of constant validation and perceived security, they establish themselves as indispensable, creating a powerful emotional dependency even before any red flags might appear. The target is effectively hooked on the idealized version of themselves reflected back by the love bomber, making it incredibly difficult to disentangle from the relationship once the devaluation phase inevitably begins. The initial high of feeling chosen and understood becomes a benchmark, a golden standard the victim desperately tries to reclaim, even as the relationship deteriorates. Concept 2. Cognitive dissonance and the erosion of reality. Once the initial high of love bombing has taken hold, another powerful psychological mechanism comes into play: cognitive dissonance. Coined by Leon Festinger in 1957, cognitive dissonance describes the mental discomfort experienced by a person who holds two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values, or is confronted by new information that conflicts with existing beliefs, ideas, or values. To reduce this discomfort, individuals often change one of the conflicting cognitions or rationalize their behavior. In the context of love bombing, this becomes a potent tool for manipulation. The love bomber creates an intensely idealized initial reality. They present themselves as the perfect partner, showering the target with affection and promises. When the inevitable shift occurs, When the compliments cease, the attention wanes, and controlling or demeaning behaviors begin to emerge, the target experiences profound cognitive dissonance. Their initial belief that they are with a soulmate or perfect partner clashes violently with the emerging evidence of manipulation, cruelty, or neglect. Example: consider Emily, a bright architect. Her love bomber, David, had initially been her biggest cheerleader. He praised her intelligence, her ambition, her beauty, and her unique vision. He'd send her inspirational messages throughout the day, claiming she was destined for greatness, and that he believed in her more than anyone ever had. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, his behavior shifted. He started subtly criticizing her choices, dismissing her ideas, or making passive-aggressive remarks about her friends. He'd forget important dates, or suddenly become cold and distant for days without explanation. Emily, remembering the initial David, the one who saw her as perfect, struggled immensely. Her brain wrestled with two conflicting realities: the perfect partner, who adored her, and the current partner who was increasingly critical and unreliable. To resolve this unbearable tension, she began to rationalize his behavior. "He's just stressed at work," she'd tell herself. "I must have done something to upset him. He loves me, he just has a lot on his plate." She started to blame herself, diminishing the impact of his negative actions to preserve the idealized image she had of him and of their relationship. This internal struggle became a new form of self-gaslighting, solidifying the manipulator's power. Why it matters: cognitive dissonance is a critical component of the love bombing cycle because it forces the victim to internalize the blame and rationalize the abuser's behavior. By convincing themselves that the initial, perfect phase was the real relationship, and the subsequent abuse is an anomaly or their own fault, they become trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and self-blame. This makes it incredibly difficult to break free, as their own mind becomes an accomplice in the manipulation, constantly seeking to reconcile the conflicting realities rather than confronting the truth of the abuse. The dissonance becomes a psychological anchor, binding them to a person who has already begun to systematically dismantle their sense of self. Concept 3. Intermittent reinforcement and the addiction to hope. One of the most potent psychological principles employed by love bombers is intermittent reinforcement, a concept rooted in B.F. Skinner's research on operant conditioning from the 1950s. Unlike continuous reinforcement, where a behavior is rewarded every time it occurs, intermittent reinforcement provides rewards unpredictably. This creates a much stronger and more persistent behavior because the subject learns that effort might be rewarded, even if it's not consistent. This unpredictability creates a powerful psychological dependency. In love bombing, the initial continuous reinforcement, the constant praise, gifts, and attention, abruptly shifts to an intermittent schedule. The love bomber withdraws affection, becomes cold, critical, or even disappears for periods, only to return with another intense burst of love, apologies, or promises. This on-again, off-again cycle is incredibly powerful. The target becomes conditioned to chase the high of the initial love bombing phase, constantly striving to earn back the affection that was once freely given. The unpredictable rewards create a powerful form of psychological addiction. Example: consider Alex, who was initially overwhelmed by his partner, Chloe's, effusive declarations of love. She would text him hundreds of times a day, say, "I love you," dozens of times, and make grand romantic gestures. Then, without warning, Chloe would become distant. She'd ignore his calls, reply to texts curtly, or accuse him of not caring enough. Alex would feel a crushing anxiety, desperately trying to understand what he had done wrong. He'd send apologetic messages, buy her flowers, and try to reignite the initial spark. After days, or sometimes weeks, Chloe would suddenly reappear, bursting with apologies, blaming her own stress, and showering him with renewed affection, declaring her profound love and how much she regretted her behavior. The relief Alex felt was immense, a powerful dopamine rush that solidified his belief that this good Chloe was the real Chloe, and that he just needed to try harder to keep her. He became addicted to the cycle, forever chasing the fleeting moments of intense affection, convinced that if he just did the right thing, the love bomber would return to her initial adoring self. The hope of future reward outweighed the current pain, trapping him in a loop of desperation and momentary relief. Why it matters: intermittent reinforcement is insidious because it creates a highly resistant pattern of behavior, making it incredibly difficult for the target to leave. The unpredictable nature of the rewards keeps them perpetually hopeful, always believing that the good times are just around the corner. This cycle fundamentally rewires the brain, much like a gambling addiction, where the anticipation of a potential win keeps the player at the machine. The target becomes conditioned to tolerate increasing levels of abuse in exchange for the occasional, intense bursts of affection, creating a powerful emotional roller coaster that leaves them exhausted, confused, and deeply entrenched in the manipulative dynamic. They are not merely hoping for love, they are addicted to the possibility of it, making disengagement feel like withdrawal from a vital substance. Concept 4. Trauma bonding and the Stockholm Syndrome connection. As the cycle of love bombing and devaluation progresses, another deeply disturbing phenomenon often takes root: trauma bonding. This concept, popularized by researchers like Dutton and Painter in their work on Battered Woman Syndrome, 1981, describes the strong emotional attachments that can develop between an abuser and their victim due to a repeating cycle of abuse, followed by periods of positive reinforcement. It's a psychological paradox where the victim forms a powerful, often illogical, loyalty to the person who is causing them harm. Trauma bonding shares significant parallels with Stockholm Syndrome, where hostages develop a psychological alliance with their captors. In both cases, the victim experiences intense emotional and often physical isolation, a sense of powerlessness, and a cycle of fear interspersed with small acts of kindness or perceived moments of empathy from the abuser. This creates a distorted sense of gratitude and dependency, where the victim interprets the absence of abuse, or the return of brief affection, as evidence of the abuser's inherent goodness or love. Example: